We welcome Daniel Burrus, who is considered one of the world's leading technology forecasters and disruptive innovation experts. Over the past 30 years, he has established a worldwide reputation for his exceptional record of accurately predicting the future of technological change and its direct impact on the business world. He is a strategic advisor to executives from Fortune 500 companies, handpicked by LinkedIn as one of their first influencers, now with over 1 million global followers, given over 3,000 keynote speeches, and is the author of 7 books, including the New York Times bestseller, Flash Foresight, and his latest bestseller, The Anticipatory Organization. Burrus is a highly innovative entrepreneur who has founded 6 businesses, 4 of which were national leaders in the first year. He has been referred to by the New York Times as one of the top 3 business gurus in the highest demand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Daniel Burrus.
All right, welcome. We have a global audience once again to know what's next in this webinar. And I'm going to talk to you for a while. I'm going to lay out some trends that you want to know is next and give you some opportunities that I would like you to think about pursuing. And then we'll open it up to question and answer. So you'll get a chance to ask me questions about anything you'd like, about what I've talked about today, or frankly, anything. If you have questions along the way while I'm sharing the content part of this, what I'd like you to do is type it in the chat down below, and then when we go to Q&A, we can start doing that. Also, we'll give you the chance to raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and we can actually turn on your audio and have you ask me a question. So again, this is about know what's next. And one of the things that I want you to know is that I'm extremely optimistic about the future. Oh, very much so. There's a lot of pessimism around, but wow, there's no reason to be that way. First of all, let's understand when it comes to pessimism, pessimists tend to not do anything. Why? Well, they know it'll fail. They're pessimists, let's face it. It's optimists that actually create the future, that shape the future, that create all of the new things, that solve all the problems. And I've got plenty of good reason to be optimistic. One of them is all of you that are attending this from all over the world. And again, we have a large community. We are all committed to being not just reactionary, but as I teach, to be anticipatory, learning how to anticipate problems before they happen so that you can pre-solve them, anticipate disruptions before they disrupt, so that you have the choice to be the disruptor or the disrupted. So while I'm going through these trends today, what I want you to do is have your opportunity antenna up as high as you can, because I'm going to be giving you some technologies that are shaping the future. And I want you to be thinking to yourself, with your background, with the industry that you're in, with the business that you serve, with the clients that you have, is there a way to redefine and reinvent a product or a service? Because we're in a period of transformation. Technology-driven transformation. Notice I didn't say change. And when you have transformation, well, that's where, unlike change, which comes from the outside in, transformation always comes from the inside out, whether it's personal or organizational, which gives you more control. So again, keep those opportunity antennas up as I go through and talk about these. And then if you have questions or comments, save them, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. So let's just put a slide up. First thing I want to talk about is the datification of everything. Oh, yeah. I mean, data is the fuel that is feeding AI. Data is the fuel that is actually enabling the next level of digitization. And the digital revolution is definitely not going away. It's accelerating at beyond exponential levels. For those of you that have been following me for a long time, you might know that way back in the, 1983, I came up with a list of 20 technologies that would shape the future and grow at an exponential rate. And digitization and the digital revolution was on that list, along with AI, along with what we now call the cloud. I call it distributed computing and the internet, along with photovoltaics, along with all sorts of things that we're doing today. I mean, I don't want to go through all 20 right now, but let's talk about how they've evolved and what they're creating and those opportunities. So the datification of everything means that we're making things intelligent. Chips are getting smaller and smaller, cheaper and cheaper, and they can communicate in a wired or wireless way. So as we continue to build out what's called the Internet of Things, we'll end up with eventually the Internet of Everything. And it's all, again, about data. So let's talk about some opportunities that relate to that. Let me make this just a little bit bigger so that you can see it. And that is, so data is the fuel that is powering digitization. And that gives us the ability to have increasingly streaming analytics. Now, let me put that up small so you can see it. So with streaming analytics, what we're talking about is high-speed data analytics, which you can get today as a service. You don't even have to own all the equipment. You can just buy it as it's needed. So any size company can do that. And data analytics has now got an AI front end that makes it even smarter. And with streaming analytics, what we can do is get real-time insights that are streaming to us from the analysis of what's taking place in real time. Now, we see that a little bit when you're watching the weather, and you see the weatherman on, and he's got radar, which of course is located in various points, not where the weatherman is standing or the weather person, but it's out in the field. In many cases, very far away, but that is streaming to him in real time so that he can make analysis and see, oh, that cloud's moving, or there's a twirling over there. That could be a tornado forming. In other words, we're getting some real-time data, but the data is coming and it's being analyzed by the weatherman. Increasingly, we're going to see AI helping us get some analysis coming to us streaming. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I cover AI. By the way, am I suggesting we won't need a weatherman? No, but what I'm suggesting is there's new tools that will let the weathermen and women transform what they do and how they do it and deliver some interesting new services to all of us that want to keep track of what's going on with the weather. Okay, let's talk about another one, and that is augmented analytics. Here, I'll make it a little bit bigger so that you can see it. So we got streaming analytics. Augmented analytics is really a little different in that we're augmenting it with AI, it's streaming to us, and we're getting some insights that we could not pull together without the AI element to analytics and the data. So let's go back to, let's go to one, not to go back, let's go to one more little element here. Data, track, and trail to everything. Now, what does that mean? Well, as we get more and more connected, let me put that back up over here, we are creating a data trail. When you use Facebook, when you use Instagram, when you use LinkedIn, you're creating data. Basically, if you look at LinkedIn, for example, it's a giant search engine when you learn how to use it correctly. So that changes your thinking of what LinkedIn might even be. And different social media platforms, whatever you're doing on there is creating a data trail of everything. And so you want to be careful of what you're doing on there. And you want to also make sure that if you're a business, you're brand compliant with what you're doing. A lot of companies aren't thinking about the ramifications of what's being shared. So there's the track and trace element to data. Okay, let's remember, if you have questions about any of these, let's come back to them. But what I want to realize, and what I want you to realize from an opportunity standpoint, is with the datification of more and more things. In other words, you might want to now, as an opportunity, look at a device that you might have or a machine that you might have and ask yourself, would it have more value if it was generating data about its use? And if the answer is yes, hint, it probably is, there's a way to make that happen. I'll come back with, again, some more examples in a minute. Let's cover another one. I mentioned in my Know What's Next last month, I spent quite a bit of time on blockchain as a service. Here, I'll make that just a little bit bigger for you. So I've spent quite a bit of time on that one already. But for those that were not in attendance, let me put that back up there for you. Blockchain is an amazing tool that gives you increasing transparency. It gives you increased security, and it allows, in this case, if you apply it to the supply chain to have increasing security, increasing transparency, and it streamlines a lot of processes so that partners within the supply chain can all communicate and collaborate at work and work together in a instantaneous way, in ways that are far beyond what we have today. By the way, when it goes to supply chain transformation, it's kind of interesting that the big companies have been using datification and have been using technologies and blockchain for a while now. But it's the mid-sized and the small-sized companies within the supply chain that are still, in many cases, doing things with paper, doing things with email, paper invoices, or sending them in an email as an attached PDF. Again, that can all be automated. Blockchain can help us to do that. Let's talk about some others. Tokenization, creating tokens. Now, of course, Bitcoin is a token. It represents a certain amount of value. All right, but let's talk about some other elements to that. One of them is business tokens. Let me make that a little bit bigger. So we've got business tokens. All right, now what the heck is a business token? Well, there are companies that right now will allow, and there's a number of them, you could do a Google search, and they will let you create a token of you or of your company. That is a cryptocurrency. You can give it a design, you can give it a look. You can't give it a feel because it's digital, but you can give it definitely a look that is brand compliant. What might you do with that? Well, if you had a token that you're issuing of your company, you might attach a value to that and give people discounts by giving them tokens instead of giving them cash. In other words, sign up today, and instead of saying we'll give you this or this, what we'll do is give you X number of our company tokens that you can apply later to buy any other things that you would like. So when you accumulate a number of tokens from a company, you can use them to buy other products and services from that company and apply the value of that token. The more tokens that are issued, the more people that use them. It's kind of like with Bitcoin, what happens? They go up in value. So people buying are getting tokens of your company. Imagine if you had tokens of Amazon from 10 years ago or Apple from 20 years ago. Boy, they'd be worth a lot of money. So it's similar to a stock, but it's different. So the tokenization of businesses and even individuals. There's actually personalities now, entertainment and TV personalities, that are starting to issue tokens of themselves. And of course, people are using those and can buy things with those from their shows or from their music. Speaking of music and entertainment, let me give you one other, and that is NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And NFTs are really big right now in the entertainment and in the business, entertainment and television world and in the music world. So basically it is, again, not a physical tangible thing, but I might issue an NFT, for example, in myself, back in 1983, I put together my list of 20 core technologies that would increasingly drive the transformations going forward at an exponential rate. And I have the original document that I came up with that list on. And it's got some historic value to it because the list is still the list. It's got photovoltaics on it. It had nanotechnology on it. It had genetic engineering on there. I mean, if you look at the list, hey, wow, it's still the list of these core technologies. Well, I could put that original list out as a NFT for people that would like to, someone that would like to bid on that and collect it. And you might think, well, I don't know who would buy that. I don't know. I'm not sure myself, but it could be historians. It could be people that are really good at studying the evolution of predictability of the internet and other technologies. What do you have? What might you have that would have value as coming out with the original version of it? For example, the first tweet that was made by the founder of Twitter was sold as a NFT. All right. And by the way, brought in millions. So what might you want to create as an NFT? All right. Enough of those. Let's give you another one. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Cloud-enabled transformations. Well, the cloud is enabling many transformations. And let's just talk about a few. Of course, it's how we store data. It's how we process data. It is, a matter of fact, in the cloud is where you will find AI taking place. Most of us don't own AI, but we use it on a daily basis because we're tapping into AI in the cloud. There's a hardware side to the cloud, and there's a service side, a software side. As a matter of fact, you might think of it as hardware as a service and software as a service. That's where you get IT as a service, all because of the cloud. There's anticipatory cybersecurity. Now, let me just address that for just a minute. Current cybersecurity tends to be a break fix. All of a sudden, we find out that we've been hacked and we've got to go fix it now. We've got a data breach. Now we got to go fix it. That's a break fix model, kind of like our healthcare model, kind of like so many other models we have. But thanks to all of these new technologies that we're talking about now, you not only can have the break fix model, but you can have the predict and prevent model, because you can have an anticipatory element to it. Because we're increasingly doing behavior analytics and personality profiles of people and their use of technology, we can detect something that is not right before the hack begins, before the data breach begins. We can anticipate that we're getting some digital behaviors that are not normal, they're anomalies. And thanks to AI, we can rate those to find out their likelihood that we've got a hack or an intrusion that has not happened yet, but somebody's trying to do it. because it's anticipatory, what we're able to do, excuse me, is predict and prevent, solve the problem before it happens, which again is a core principle of being anticipatory. Let's talk about another one. Make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. Computers talking to computers. We have machines talking to machines and computers talking to computers, making decisions that we have qualified them to do. Now, again, instead of saying machines, you can make any decision you want. Computers, you can make any decision you want. Now we put parameters around those decisions. Why? Because we want to predict and prevent rather than break and fix. So if a computer can see that a piece of equipment that I've got in my office or in my shop is about to break and malfunction because there are sensors on that, it's now been made smart. It can order the new part for me. Why? Because I told it to. If you can tell it that thing's going to be gone in about 2 weeks and the countdown has happened, I want you, knowing that we can get the part in a week, I want you to order it today. I want to make that automatic. A lot of people have done that in their refrigerators. They've got a predetermined time when they know they're going to run out of milk or some other thing that they consume a lot on a food basis, and it is automatically ordered and sent to them. That is kind of smart, but it would be even smarter if there was a sensor inside the refrigerator that could actually see what the level and how much you have left is, or in your pantry, how much is left. And when you get down to a predetermined level that you set, it automatically orders it, so you never run out. I'm giving you kind of a simple example of computers talking to computers and why you would want to do that. So it's all about predetermining what level you want. All right, let's give you another one. Let's talk about, let me make it a little bit bigger for you, extended reality. And extended reality has some different elements to extending our reality. One of them is virtual reality and augmented reality and omniverse simulations, thanks to virtual reality more so than augmented reality, where we can create another omniverse, think of it that way, like a universe, except it's taking all of these elements of virtual reality that are lifelike in terms of quality, not just 4K, but what's next, 8K resolution, 16K resolution. We know we're going there, and we can even predict what time those roll out. For example, right now I'm working with a company on 6G wireless. We've got 5G. Well, hey, we know 6G is next. What are the components? How do you measure it? How do you track it? Well, there's companies that are working on that. So in terms of the omniverse and VR, all of these technologies are advancing at a beyond exponential rate, allowing us to take it to another whole new level, to extend our reality. Let me give you one more. Let's make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. And that is next generation digital twins and what we've seen in the news lately, deep fakes. So let me talk just a little bit about that. Digital twins, what the heck is that? Well, companies can use this to create a digital twin of a process, a product, a service, whatever it is you're trying to do. So let's say that I'm going to build a new building. Well, I could create a digital twin of that building before I build it. And thanks to extended reality, we could put on some AR headsets and we could walk through the building based on what the architecture and the architects have designed. And we could walk through it as humans would be walking through it, interface with it to see if we like where things are, if we like the placement, if we like the experience, if we like the aesthetics. Is there something that we need to move or change? Is there something that we would want to modify before we actually build that building? Now, I'm using architecture and buildings as an example, but it could be anything because you can simulate anything in the omniverse. All right. Let's talk for a second about deep fakes. So you can make a deep fake of any person, and thanks to AI getting so powerful and elements of AI, there is a company that can create a voice just like mine or yours, just off of several spoken words, so that a voice that I could be reading something for you that I have never read, but it could be my voice, if you like my voice. That could be done. Also, you can make a deep fake of me or anyone. So they have, this is another company that does a camera on you, and they can capture your facial expressions, like I'm moving my eyebrows, I'm moving my face, I'm moving my head left and right. Well, they can capture all of that so that they can have me with my voice, thanks to that other company, me talking and saying things that I've never said or I never did, because it may not just be in this kind of a setting. Could be me out in the world doing something that I never really did. Now, surely there's a downside to all of these technologies. Absolutely, there's a downside, but there's also an upside. Now, one of the upsides is we've got to predict the downsides and try to prevent them, predict and prevent through regulations and other things that we can do as industry. But let's just think about deep fakes and the positive element of that. For example, I might want to create a deep fake of me on purpose. Why? So that I could deliver news and other things more often to you when I don't have the time actually as the real me to do that. So I could type it out, I could put it all together and then have the deep fake of me give you the news, give you the know what's next. And if you want to talk to the real Dan, he'll be joining us in the question and answer. Now, I'm just giving you a quick example of a possible use of a deep fake. what else could we do with deepfakes? Is there some positive sides? Let's not always go to the negative. Let's think of the positive. I want your antenna up. Now, before I go to any more, wait a minute, let's turn that off. Before I go to any more of these, and I am going to cover some more, I want to remind you that I have a deep dive coming up. That's going to be on the 27th. Usually I do them on a Tuesday. However, I'm making an exception this time. I had something on Tuesday I have to do. So it's going to be a week from today, Wednesday, at this exact same time. And the deep dive is a deep dive into one of the key subjects of my anticipatory leader learning system. And you would need to, unlike this one, you would need to become a member of my anticipatory leader membership service. And in that service, you get access to monthly deep dives where I go deep into a specific subject with good examples and a chance to ask me questions. And you also get access to my award-winning learning system. You actually get access to other people that want to become anticipatory versus reactionary. And to do that, you would want to go to either burrus.com, and there's a place on our website, or I know Jennifer, who always helps me with these, put in the chat a link. And if you go between now and the day of this coming Wednesday, and you click on that link, if you register now, I'll give you a 40% discount on membership because I want as many anticipatory people as possible doing that. By the way, the subject of this deep dive, yeah, I almost said deep fake. The subject of this deep dive is going to be future-proofing, how you can future-proof yourself and your organization from the exponential growth of technology change. Wow, future-proofing, is that even possible? And the answer sure is. I'm going to cover that in the deep dive that I will be doing coming up. All right, I'm going to give you a few more to take a look at right now. Let's go to a few more before we take question and answer. Everything is getting smarter. Everything. Our smartphones, well, they're getting smarter every iteration. Our television sets are getting smarter. Our buildings are getting smarter. We've got smart clothes already coming out. There are smart carpets that you can walk on. There, as a matter of fact, what smart light bulbs. There are smart buildings. There's smart concrete, in that you can tell if a bridge has concrete, you can tell if it's cracking, and you can fix it before the bridge comes down. You can make anything smart. So everything is getting not just smart, but smarter. We also, thanks to everything getting smarter, you can have autonomous taxis. It's already existing in a number of places, thanks to Waymo, running experiments that are working quite well. Autonomous delivery vehicles, where they're delivering products, already happening. There's even autonomous street sweepers that are cleaning the streets. So there's no person on board using AI and other tools. So we have a lot of autonomous, matter of fact, there's a lot of autonomous vehicles in various forms. But some of you might remember that one of the things that I predicted quite a while ago is that we'll have an autonomous and a semi-autonomous future. Not everything is going to be fully autonomous, or some things we will make semi-autonomous, meaning it will have autonomous functions and features to not let us have an accident, but allow us to drive. For example, I think having a semi-autonomous school bus would be great. Having a fully autonomous school bus, I don't know if you want your kindergartner or first grader on the bus with no adult supervision and no driver. But you might want to make sure that that school bus cannot have an accident. That's where semi-autonomous school buses come into play. So there are certain things that we're going to make fully autonomous, certain things we will not. I will talk about that another time. Let's go back to this list, give you a few more. Delivery by drone, already happening. As a matter of fact, in Africa, we've been getting drugs delivered by drone to far-reaching places. Canada has a very dispersed population in many parts of Canada. They've been using drone to do delivery of pharmaceuticals and other things. And there have been places in Europe that are delivering packages to people that buy things from their equivalent of an Amazon. So that already is starting to happen. Let's give you a few more here. You've got, by the way, Google Wings, Google has a thing called Wings Aviation, where they're doing delivery. That's just an example. In-city personal transportation as a service. Of course, what I'm really referring to here is the idea of there are scooters. There are the type that you stand up on and they have electric power. There are scooters that actually you can sit down in, which are far safer. In San Diego, I can tell you right now, there's a lot of people that are standing up on two-wheel scooters, and they've got two people on them, and they've been drinking at night, going from place to place in the city. A lot of people are ending up in the emergency room because driving a scooter isn't all that easy, especially if you're not keeping your eye on the road. Matter of fact, I've actually seen a man, a woman, and their kid on a small little scooter. So we're not talking about a motor scooter, we're talking about an electronic scooter that you stand on, kind of like a skateboard with a handle. Now, the better ones are the ones that have a seat so that you sit down. Why is that better? It's safer because now you can put your feet down and one person only is on those. Well, that's really creating quite a transformation in city transportation, because we don't all have to be in a full-size vehicle, a taxi, a cab, or a Uber or a Lyft. In some cases, we can get around without having to clog the streets with that. This is another area where automation comes into play, intelligence comes into play to predict and prevent an accident. All right, let's give you another one. Let's go back to the bigger. Augmented Analytics. Again, this is using AI and machine learning. It can then review the data and send just-in-time insights to you. Matter of fact, that is where AI-enabled augmented thinking comes into play. I've said for quite a long time that instead of AI just replacing all humans, it's going to be augmented thinking, where we have AI augmenting our thinking, because AI has access to things that we don't, far more databases and all this stuff. But because it can be made intelligent, it can be following what we need, it can work off of voice commands. I can have a little Bluetooth thing in my ear, and I can have that going to my device that's going up to the cloud where all of this resides, and I can ask for some information and I can get it retrieved to me instantly. So I can get all sorts of interesting analytics. All right, let's talk about another one. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Networking, 5G enabled transformations. Oh my goodness, 5G is unbelievable what it will do. By the way, 5G is amazingly fast. In some cases, it can be faster than early fiber optics, and faster than any Wi-Fi. So now 5G is still in its early phases. We've got more and more handsets, meaning our smartphones, coming out with 5G. There's several versions of 5G, a slower version of 5G, faster than your current 4G, but not as fast as Wi-Fi when you have a good connection. That is out there. And the advantage of that slower Wi-Fi, or pardon me, slower 5G is that it covers a bigger area per transmitter. The super blazing fast 5G needs transmitters closer together. And that's already in a lot of cities. For example, in San Diego, we got blazing fast. In San Francisco, blazing fast. But if you go into the suburbs, it won't be as blazing fast. You'll have the slower version. Well, what are we doing? We're building out the faster version. Not only that, but with 5G, you can have a private 5G network for a company or for a group of companies that is highly secure. So what do we really see here as 5G continues to get built out? What we see is you're not going to need Wi-Fi anymore. That's going to be too slow. And Wi-Fi isn't all that secure. But 5G or cellular, oh, that can be far more secure. And you're going to like that security level. So you can embed, and 5G is really about a chipset. So you could embed 4G already and 5G in devices. As a matter of fact, 3G and 4G are already embedded in devices communicating in that way. For example, I have a home in a lake home in Wisconsin that I go to in the summer months because Burrus Research was founded in Milwaukee and our home base was in Milwaukee. But I also have an office and a residence in San Diego in the winter months. Kind of makes sense if you think about climate and the cycles. So when I leave the Wisconsin place, what I have is some sensors that are connected not to Wi-Fi, but to cellular sensors. Why do I want cellular sensors instead of Wi-Fi? Because if Wi-Fi goes out and I've got some flooding taking place in my home because a pipe broke or something, I want to know about that ASAP. I want to know that the minute that's starting to happen. And I'd rather have the device call my cell phone and leave me a text and let me know right away that there's a problem. That's far more reliable than Wi-Fi, which may be good or may have gone out on at the wrong time. I'm just giving you a quick example. What else could we connect with cellular to make things more connected and intelligent? All right, wireless VR headsets using 5G. Oh, that's going to be gigantic. Matter of fact, we're going to see 4G enabled VR headsets. Initially, we'll start to see that, but 5G is where the action is going to be. And you can imagine Facebook and others that have gotten really big into virtual reality headsets, putting that in. Now, what does that mean? That means super bandwidth, super fidelity, and I've got the headset and I don't have to be connected with a wire or with Bluetooth. I don't have to be connected with Wi-Fi. As a matter of fact, I could move around in it. I could even envision that there is a little camera in the front of that VR headset that allows me to see my real reality a little bit so that if I'm moving around, I don't walk into something. You're going to see that take place. Let's give you a few more. How might we use that? Devices and things connected at the edge. So because of 5G and putting it at the chip level and connecting it with such fidelity and such speed, we're going to see more and more devices and more things connected. Think about the Internet of Things growing to the Internet of everything. And we're pushing computing out to the edge. It's called edge computing, because it all doesn't have to go back to the mothership where a lot of decisions will be made. As a matter of fact, when you're using your smartphone and you're out in a field somewhere, you're in the edge. There's a lot of processing and things that are taking place in your computer at the edge. Same thing with a tablet or a laptop. But we're doing more and more at the edge. Why? Because speed counts. And the more that has to go back to the mothership, meaning your company, and where the servers are, that is latency. And we're trying to get rid of latency whenever possible. V2V connectivity. What is that? V2V connectivity is vehicle-to-vehicle connectivity, where vehicles can connect to other vehicles, creating a little pod as they drive so that we know really where the location of other vehicles are, and we can make sure that it's coupled with the semi-autonomous elements to keep us from having accidents. All right, let me give you another. Robots as a service. Yeah. It says you have to own the robot. Why can't we get it as a service? Well, let me make this a little bigger for you. Warehousing and service robots. Restaurant and kitchen robots. Already there are robots that can flip hamburgers that are getting into fast food so that we don't need the hamburger flipper. What else could we automate? What other robots could be offered as a service? Think about it. Keep your opportunity antenna up. All right. Let's give you just a few more very quickly, then I'll open it up to question and answer. Embedded AI, and I'll make this a little bit bigger. Embedded AI, and machine learning. So it gets embedded. In other words, it's at the chip level. We're actually bringing AI and ML to the chip level to do functionality within a device where you're not even connected if you don't want to be, and you still have AI capabilities. That's just how amazing this beyond exponential transformation. Machine vision allows us to have very intelligent vision, way beyond today's facial recognition, although that's part of it. Being able to recognize anything and having intelligence in it so that decisions can be made in real time about what's taking place. Has huge ramifications. For example, you could have vision systems that are keeping track of herds of cows, and they can analyze behavior. They can see when there is something going wrong. They can see where there is one that broke through the fence or whatever. I mean, there's so many different uses you could have to vision systems, and you can get very minute with them so that you can look at very small things and analyze them. So what would you like to see and analyze? Because vision systems are getting better and better and better. And again, it creates data that's tied to AI, that's tied to insights that can flow directly to you. So where would vision play a role? What would you like to make smart with embedded AI? How about natural language processing? Natural language processing is basically speech, text to speech, or it is hearing me talk and having it instantaneously translated into another language. Or if you think about chatbots, that was a couple of years ago. What do we got now? Business bots. And they don't have to be like an Alexa from Amazon. They can be embedded and put into anything where we can have a conversation. We can ask questions. We can get answers. Those will be embedded in products. So when you get the product, how does this thing work? Ask it, it'll tell you. How do I put that thing together? It'll tell you. And you say, how do I put it together? And it's all right, let me tell you, here's what you do. What would you like to do with that? It's going to be very big. Automate communications. That's another big one for us. Because with automated communications, there are some lower level communications that we're going to want to have with our customers, and they could be automated, perhaps with we'll call them a positive deep fake. All right, so the customer service rep, in other words, the person who looks like the customer service rep, the deep fake of the customer service rep, will give you low levels answers based on frequently asked questions. And then when it gets too difficult, the deep fake customer service will say, just a minute, you're going to need the real me for this one. Let me get the real me. And then boom, the real me will appear and say, all right, now let me listen to your problem and see if I can help you solve it. You see, we do need humans for those higher level elements. What else? The digitization of all services. And you can do that through, or did I say services? I'm sorry, senses. Let's make that a little bigger for you. For example, there already are some chips that can smell and smell different things. So what would we like to smell? By the way, dogs can smell far better than humans, amazingly so. That's why we use dogs to sniff out all sorts of different things, whether it be drugs at an airport or whether it be people that might be underneath rubble after an earthquake. But they can do far more than that. Matter of fact, they can sniff at a molecular level. So what we're doing is making smell at the level of a dog that a chip can do and tell you what it smells. By the way, diseases have an odor when you exhale. So I could see that we could be exhaling and we could get an analysis of whether we are sick or not just from exhaling, or maybe predict and prevent using anticipatory medical diagnostics. Actually, every sense that we have, because I mentioned voice, I mentioned vision, I mentioned smell, whatever sense you've got, we could digitize and make intelligence. Keep your opportunity antenna up. Think about that one. Last one that I want to cover today, and then we'll open it up to question and answer, is quantum computing as a service. Quantum computing is amazing. Matter of fact, let me just point this out because I want you to read it for yourself. Quantum is like 1 billion, not a million, 1 billion times faster than the fastest computers today. It's like a holy cow. And of course, there are many, many, many uses that we'll have for quantum computing, and it's here already. We're also going to be, because we're creating so much data, we're going to be starting to store it on synthetic DNA. Synthetic means man-made DNA. So synthetic DNA for storage, quantum as a service. We already have Amazon offering that, so you don't have to own your own quantum computer. Quantum is far enough along. It's in very early stages, but it's enough that we've already are offering it as a service and companies are paying for it so they can start experimenting with it. And of course, when it comes to cybersecurity, we want to be ahead on the quantum game, because once quantum gets to a certain level, all of our non-quantum security measures will not work anymore. So obviously that's one of the first areas quantum is going, is cybersecurity. Okay, we've covered a lot today. Let me turn that off. I'm going to open it up to Q&A, but before I open it up to question and answer, let me plug one more time. On the 27th, a week from today, I've got a deep dive I'm doing, how to future-proof your career and your business from the exponential rate of technology-driven change. You're going to want to catch that one. You might think future-proofing is impossible. It is not. It is definitely doable. So I'm going to show you how. I'm going to go deep into that. To do that deep dive, you're going to want to become a member of my Anticipatory Leader Learning System and membership service, where you get my access to my award-winning learning system. You get access to other anticipatory leaders around the world. You get some tools, you get resources, you get monthly deep dives into a subject like the one I'm going to be covering. And to do that, you can go to burrus.com, or you can go to the link in chat, click on that. And if you register right now before next Wednesday, I'll give you a 40% discount, because I want as many anticipatory leaders as possible. Okay, let's take questions. Jennifer, are there questions?
There are questions. Our first one comes from Kurt. He says, how will predict, prevent move forward when so many businesses make money via break fix?
A lot of companies make money by break fix, absolutely. And what they're going to be doing is selling you on predict and prevent. You see, remember, the future is both and, not either or. It's a key principle that I share in my learning system. I'll share it with you very quickly because it's germane to this answer I'm giving you. What we do when we look to the future, for some reason, humans do this. We think the future is either this or that. It's either fully autonomous or no autonomous. It's either break fix or predict and prevent. But the reality is the future is predict and prevent and break fix. Right now, all we got is break fix. And there's a lot of companies, as you said, they're making a lot of money on break fix. But when we can also do predict and prevent, a lot of those companies will be saying we have both options. We can predict and prevent, and if there's something that was unforeseen, we'll do the break fix model. Actually, that's even how healthcare is going to work. I mean, most of us go to the hospital or go to a doctor because something's wrong. Great. And then we go there to get fixed. We got a sinus infection or something. We'll increasingly be doing predict and prevent, but there still will be times when you're going to hurt yourself or have an accident or whatever, and there's going to be a break fix need. So what we'll see is a both and. One other little principle here is that you're either going to be more relevant or less relevant as we move into the future. That's why my deep dive is so important on how to future proof. You're either going to be more relevant or less relevant. You're either going to be the disruptor or the disrupted. So those that are in break fix and they protect and defend the break fix model and don't do what I'm talking about, and that is to embrace and extend the new, to offer new features and new services, they will be increasingly less relevant. Okay, let's take another one.
Okay, next question is from Greg. Please share any tips and techniques that can accelerate product managers and R&D support to meet my voice of the customer.
Excellent. Well, your voice of the customer, of course, is not static. It's dynamic. The voice of the customer is always changing, in other words, and we need to be monitoring that change. Typically, we're seeing what they're thinking now, and we know what they thought in the past. And one of the things that's beautiful about becoming anticipatory is you can start to anticipate customer needs. You can see the voice of the customer today, but you can get a good handle on not all, but a lot of what they're going to be, what that voice of the customer is about to become. So one of the things you have to do is sell them, those people that you want to have connected to the voice of the customer, on the benefits of it. And one of the principles that I've taught in other deep dives and in my learning system is the cost of the no, meaning getting to really understand where the customer is today, the voice of the customer, and where the customer is heading, not where just the customer has been, is going to make or break our profitability going forward, because we're also going to see hyper competition because the barrier to entry is less. If we're going to be more relevant, if we're going to really serve our customers' needs and future needs and make sure that we have become indispensable to our customers, we're going to have to take advantage of these new technologies to really understand the voice of the customer. All right. The cost of not doing it is this, 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 and this. You need to have that list, because if we fail to do that, here is what it means in terms of loss of relevance, loss of revenue, loss of competitive advantage. Let's actually make that a dollar figure so that there is a cost to not doing it. And you'll have to sell it. Sell them on doing it and taking action. Again, what if they don't? All right, let's take another one.
Okay, next question is from Cynthia. How can we use premortems to help navigate decision-making in what's next?
Great, Cynthia. And the reason I really love it is because you use the word premortem, which means you've been reading my books or you've been into my learning system. Good, great. A postmortem is what we do when we evaluate something after the fact. In other words, we implement a new product, a new service, whatever it is we implement, then we look at what are the elements that failed. Why didn't it work? Why didn't it go according to plan? Why wasn't it a perfect rollout? That is a post-mortem. Or in the case of medical, the patient dies. Let's do a post-mortem and find out why the patient died. In this case, we're doing premortems to predict the problems that will happen before they happen. So the patient doesn't die. So the business doesn't die. So whatever you're doing doesn't die. So a premortem should be done with any new transformation initiative, change initiative, any new rollout of a product or a service. What you'd want to do before you roll out is ask some key questions. Let me give you an example. You're about to roll out, let's say, a new service. If we roll it out in this way, what happens to trust? Now, if you ask that question, you'll find out in many cases, trust would go down. You would have found that out in the post-mortem. But if you're doing it in a pre-mortem, and you'll see, oh, trust will go down. You want to change how you roll it out so trust is maintained. And if anybody can elevate trust, reward them openly, because trust is that important. So we look at key elements and key metrics in pre-mortems to make sure that we have a successful rollout and we have already eliminated the problems before they happen. Called solving tomorrow's predictable problems today. All right, we've got a little bit more time before we get to the top of the hour. I love taking questions and answers. Are there any others?
Yes, a question from Chris. What should the anticipatory leader anticipate next with the retail labor upcoming permanent generational shortage?
Well, with the retail generational shortage, permanent generational shortage, those words I'd be careful with, because there are great big numbers of people behind the baby boomers that are retiring and getting out of retail. So there's a lot of numbers of people that could get into retail. The key is what kind of retail are they getting into, and has retail got a future? And the answer I've always said is the good old days of brick and mortar retail are actually ahead of us. They're not behind us, but they don't look like the days of brick and mortar retail behind us. What we're doing is redefining and reinventing the customer experience. We're doing, as I said earlier, a both and, which we're taking e-commerce and retail, brick and mortar, and we're blending them together to create an amazing user experience. That's why you see companies like Amazon opening up brick and mortar retail outlets. They're even opening up bookstores around the country, brick and mortar bookstores. That's Amazon. Not only that, but they're opening up, they're working on the first department store. It's an Amazon department store. I'm just speaking on Amazon. I could be talking about many other companies that started out brick and mortar only and e-tailing only. And they've gone from e-tailing to e-tailing and retailing. That's where we're going. And by the way, we're going to need people for that, as well as AI for that. I think actually we can find employees who are interested in redefining and reinventing retail. It may be hard to find those that are doing it in the old way, which let's face it, they weren't that good at it anyway. All right. Do we have time? Yep. You know what? I'm going to squeeze in one more. Go ahead.
Okay, another question from Kurt. With technology dependency increasing so quickly, how can cybersecurity keep pace for business and homeowners?
Excellent question. Well, one thing is you need to make sure you're doing cybersecure measures. I would suggest a virtual private network, a VPN for your phone, for your computer, for your laptop, for all of your devices. By the way, you can get a personal one too. They don't cost that much. That really will help you out quite a bit. So you're starting to get a little more protected. I would make sure that you've got, that you're using not only just physical backups that are not connected to the internet in any way, but are put somewhere not connected so they can't get hacked. But you also have redundancy and other connections with systems that are watching that. Also, cybersecurity, one of the biggest problems for companies is it happens internally. It's their own people. Why? Because they weren't trained. So we need to up the level of training on cybersecurity so that our own employees understand how important it is, because that's usually where most lapses take place. It's happening from internal issues where people just weren't that aware. It wasn't on their radar. Also, we're going to not just have predict and prevent, as I said, we'll also have anticipatory cyber as well, which involves a lot of great technologies I don't have time to cover. By the way, there'll always be crooks trying to break in. That's always the way. Nature is that way. And we will always be developing technologies to keep the crooks out. So it is a balance, and it will always be a battle. But we need to make sure that we are more protected than everyone else. And check your passwords. Still, the most heavily used password of all passwords is 12345. Give me a break. Not too good. All right, before I end, remember 27th, a week from today, our next deep dive. Remember that these technology trends are accelerating exponentially. In that deep dive, I'm going to talk about how to future-proof yourself and your organization. I hope to see you there. And let's make this next period